What if everything you think you know about love?
Oh, wow. Starting big today.
Yeah, I mean it. What if everything you know about success, about devotion, even just your daily grind is just different flavors of madness?
That is quite the hook.
Seriously, I want you to just stop whatever you're doing right now and really think about that for a second. Today, we are exploring a completely mind-bending perspective that suggests we're all basically living in a giant lunatic asylum.
And we're the patients.
Exactly. Some of us are mad for money. Some of us are completely mad for power or status or, just the number of likes on a screen.
Right, the modern madness.
But a very, very rare few are mad for something eternal. Now, if you are watching this on the Simplified Summary YouTube channel, you already know our whole mission is to challenge the way you see the world.
We want to give you the shortcuts to being truly well-informed.
So do us a massive favor right off the bat, hit that subscribe button. And if you find value in this deep dive, share the video. It is literally the absolute best way to help us keep bringing these profound, life-changing blueprints directly to you.
That really makes a huge difference.
It really does. So our mission today is massive. We are diving into a concept that has the power to completely rewire how you experience human emotion.
Big promise.
I know. But we are unpacking bhakti, or devotion. It's this incredibly rich, transformative roadmap found deep within the compiled works of Swami Vivekananda, specifically Volume 2.
And to really grasp the weight of this material, you have to understand the context of who Swami Vivekananda was and what he was actually trying to achieve.
Right, because this isn't just some abstract theory.
Exactly. We are looking at volumes of his speeches and writings, focusing on his teachings around what is called Bhakti Yoga. For some background, Vivekananda was an Indian monk who, back in the late 19th century, essentially brought Eastern philosophy to the West.
Specifically systems like Vedanta and yoga, right?
Yeah. He was the voice that translated these ancient, incredibly dense spiritual sciences into a language that the modern, bustling industrial world could actually understand and apply.
Which is our whole goal here, too.
Exactly. Our mission in this deep dive is to demystify this path of bhakti, which roughly translates to the path of love and devotion. But, and this is crucial, we want to strip away the dogma.
Get rid of the baggage.
Right. Strip away the rigid religious structures that usually pop into your head when you hear the word devotion. We want to look at the raw underlying mechanics of it.
Because at its core, this isn't just about, chanting in a temple or blindly following a set of rules.
Not at all. It is an ancient, highly sophisticated roadmap of human emotion. And it applies directly to your life, your relationships, and the daily friction you're experiencing right now.
I am genuinely so curious about how this is going to unfold because when I was reviewing the source material, I kept thinking, well, this is not what I expected at all.
It rarely is with him.
Right. When you hear religion or devotion, you think of rigid laws, do this, don't do that. But this feels like psychology. It feels like the actual physics of emotion.
It absolutely is the physics of emotion.
So let's start with the historical backdrop because I think it perfectly sets the stage for everything we are going to unpack today. The material takes us back to September 1893. In Chicago.
The world's parliament of religions.
Yes. And I want you, the listener, to really picture this scene. You have Chicago, which was this rapidly growing, heavily industrial, incredibly ambitious Western city.
Very focused on material progress.
Exactly. And they are hosting an event meant to gather the world's religious leaders. And up steps Vivekananda, this monk in yellow robes, standing there representing Hinduism.
But what's crucial here is how he presented it.
Right. He didn't present his tradition as some closed, exclusive VIP club.
He presented it as a mother of religions, one that teaches not just basic tolerance, but universal acceptance.
What's fascinating here is the stark psychological contrast you can see between the audience and the speaker at that specific moment in history.
Oh, for sure. You have this young, tumultuous, highly energetic Western consciousness, a culture obsessed with progress, industry, and often very rigid sectarian boundaries.
And they are facing this ocean of calm, long-aged spiritual development from the East.
Vivekananda stood on that platform and essentially formulated a common basis for all human spiritual seeking.
He quoted an ancient text that really summarizes his entire worldview, right?
Yeah, saying something to the effect of, as the different streams having their sources in different places all mingle their water in the sea, so the different paths which men take all lead to thee.
It's beautiful, but he wasn't just giving a nice speech.
No, he was actively diagnosing a disease.
The disease of sectarianism and bigotry, the stuff that had literally drenched human history in blood.
Exactly. He wasn't there to argue that his specific set of rules was right and everyone else's was wrong. He was there to say, look at the underlying mechanism of human longing. Look at the ocean, not just the streams.
Okay, and to explain why people fight so bitterly over their beliefs, he uses this incredibly vivid story that I absolutely have to share with you.
The frog in the well.
Yes, the frog in the well. So imagine there is this little frog that has lived its entire life at the bottom of a dark well.
Just chilling at the bottom.
Exactly. It's born there, it grows up there, it eats the little worms that fall in, and it gets nice and fat. As far as this frog is concerned, its well is the entire universe.
There is literally nothing else.
Nothing. Then one day, another frog, a frog from the massive, boundless sea, happens to fall into this well.
A rude awakening is coming.
Oh, yeah. The well frog asks, "Where are you from?" The sea frog says, "I am from the sea."
And the well frog is immediately skeptical.
Very. It takes a little leap from one side of the well to the other and asks, "Is your sea as big as my well?"
Which is adorable.
The sea frog just laughs and says, "How can you possibly compare the sea with your little well?"
So the well frog gets defensive.
It takes a much bigger leap, practically hitting the wall, and says, "Is it this big?"
And the sea frog tells him it's absolute nonsense to even try to compare them.
And what does the well frog do? It gets furious. It says, "Nothing can be bigger than my well. This fella is a complete liar. Turn him out."
It is such a brilliant, timeless illustration.
It really is.
Vivekananda uses that story to explain the root of all religious sectarianism. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it diagnoses almost all human conflict.
Right down to the arguments you get into on the internet today.
Exactly. The Hindu sits in his little well and thinks it's the whole world. The Christian sits in his well. The Muslim in his well.
But we can abstract this even further for you listening right now. We all live in our own little wells.
You have your career silos.
Your political echo chambers, your social media algorithms that feed you exactly what you already believe.
Your rigid personal philosophies about how a relationship should work.
We build a comfortable little well, we clean up the worms, we get comfortable, and we aggressively, almost violently, reject anyone who comes along suggesting there's an entire ocean out there.
An ocean that operates on completely different rules.
But hold on, let me push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because it sounds great in theory to say, oh, just step out of your well. But isn't it just human nature to need a well? We need boundaries to feel safe.
That's a fair point.
If someone comes to me with a completely different worldview, say a political view that I find genuinely harmful, or a way of doing business that I think is unethical, my immediate instinct is exactly the well frog's instinct.
You want to push them out.
I want to say, "You're wrong, get out of my well." Are we really supposed to just accept every single differing viewpoint as part of some massive ocean? How does that not just lead to total moral relativism where everything's okay?
That is exactly the pushback that most modern minds have when they first encounter this idea, and it's a vital question.
Because otherwise it just sounds like apathy.
Right. But the philosophy here isn't advocating for moral relativism or saying that every action is universally good. It's diagnosing the reaction of the mind.
Okay, explain that.
The well frog isn't wrong for living in a well. The well frog is ignorant for aggressively denying the existence of the sea simply because it doesn't fit its current mental model.
Ah, so it's the denial that's the issue.
Exactly. The refusal to even see the ocean. The refusal to acknowledge that another person's path might be serving a purpose in the grand scheme of human development. That is what limits our growth.
So Vivekananda wasn't saying the wells are bad.
His entire mission was to break down the psychological walls of those wells. He wanted to show that the human soul isn't just traveling from error to truth, it's climbing from a lower truth to a higher truth.
The well is a truth for the frog.
But the sea is a higher, more expansive truth. When you react with instant anger to a different viewpoint, you are proving that you were still trapped in the well.
I see. So it's about the emotional reflex, the immediate hostility to the unknown. That makes a lot of sense.
It's about outgrowing that knee-jerk reaction.
It brings us right into the core subject of the deep dive today, this concept of bhakti. The source material defines bhakti as a real, genuine search for the ultimate, a search that begins, continues, and ends in love.
It is described as an intense, almost overwhelming love.
There's a quote from an ancient teacher, Narada, saying that when a person achieves this love, they love all, they hate none, and they become satisfied forever.
But to really wrap our heads around bhakti, we have to understand what exactly is being loved.
Right, because if you're going to direct intense devotion towards something, you need a target.
And this is where the philosophy gets incredibly nuanced. The material introduces two very distinct concepts of the divine, or the ultimate reality, and we need to separate them clearly.
Gee, let's break them down.
On one hand, you have the concept of the absolute. In Sanskrit, this is called Brahman. It is described as existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. It is unchangeable, formless, infinite.
It is the underlying invisible reality of the entire universe. Okay, let's unpack this. Because trying to love an infinite, formless absolute sounds literally impossible.
It's a tall order.
It's like someone telling you to fall in love with the laws of quantum mechanics, or to have a deep, passionate, romantic relationship with the concept of infinity.
You just can't do it.
It's too vast, it's too hazy. Our human emotions need something to latch onto. We have faces, we have personalities, we have finite feelings. We can't just hug the universe.
Precisely. And the philosophy completely acknowledges this human limitation. It doesn't judge it. It works with it.
How so?
To explain how we bridge this gap between our human limitations and the infinite absolute, the material uses this incredibly elegant analogy of clay.
I love this one.
Imagine an infinite boundless amount of raw, unformed clay. That raw clay represents the absolute, formless, infinite reality.
Okay, got it.
Now, from that massive lump of clay, you can fashion an infinite variety of forms. You can sculpt a little clay mouse, a massive clay elephant, or a delicate clay cup.
But before they were formed, they were all just raw clay.
Substantially, in their essence, they are totally identical. But as manifestations, their form is what makes them what they are.
You cannot say a clay mouse is a clay elephant.
Exactly. They look different, they serve different functions, even though they are made of the exact same stuff.
Right, if I need to drink water, I can't use the clay mouse. I need the clay cup, even if they are both just clay.
Exactly. Now, apply this to the concept of God, or the ultimate ideal. The highest possible reading of that formless absolute clay by the human mind is what the philosophy calls the personal God, or Ishvara.
Ishvara.
The personal God is the clay sculpted into a form that the human heart can actually comprehend. A supreme ruler, a God of infinite love, a merciful creator.
When a person practices this path of devotion, they aren't trying to worship the abstract, unformed clay.
They choose the relative aspect, the formed clay. Because human beings fundamentally need a personal God or a highly personalized ideal to direct their intense emotions toward.
So what does this all mean for the listener who might be completely secular?
It's totally applicable.
Because you don't have to be religious to see this exact same psychological mechanism playing out in your everyday life. We are human, so we think in human terms.
And we have this massive, innate, almost painful desire for the perfect.
For the infinite. We want infinite love, infinite security, infinite happiness.
But because we live in a physical world, we take that massive desire for the infinite and we project it onto finite things.
Think about it. We project it onto our romantic partners. We subconsciously say, you need to be my everything. You need to provide me with infinite, unchanging love.
Or we project it onto wealth or a career milestone.
Once I get this promotion, once I buy this house, I will be infinitely satisfied.
But they are finite things.
They are just a clay cup. They break. Spouses change. Markets crash.
This philosophy of devotion suggests that instead of torturing ourselves by projecting our desire for the infinite onto fragile, finite things, we should take all of that overwhelming emotional energy and redirect it toward the ultimate, unchanging source of love itself.
That is a phenomenal secular translation of the concept. You are taking the innate human hardware, the capacity to love obsessively and intensely, and just upgrading the software target.
But that redirection, that massive shift in focus, does not happen overnight.
No, of course not.
The psychology outlined here is highly pragmatic. It maps out this journey of devotion into distinct stages, fully acknowledging that you have to start exactly where you are.
Right. So the first stage is the preparatory stage. In the original language, it's called Gauni Bhakti.
This is where rituals, symbols, physical temples, churches, incense, and images all come into play.
And Vivekananda is extremely clear on this point. These physical tools are absolutely necessary for the vast majority of mankind. He refers to this stage as the kindergarten of religion.
The kindergarten of religion.
Now, I have to say, when I first read that phrase, it sounded a little condescending.
It can come across that way.
Like, oh, look at the cute little people with their incense and their bells. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's actually just realistic.
How do you mean?
When you teach a child math, You don't sit a 5-year-old down and start writing abstract algebra equations on the whiteboard.
They would have no idea what to do with that.
You give them physical, brightly colored wooden blocks. You say, here are 2 blocks, add 2 more blocks.
The physical blocks help the developing mind grasp the abstract concept of addition.
Temples, specific prayers, kneeling, lighting candles, these are the physical blocks. They are tangible actions that help a wandering, distracted human mind focus on an abstract spiritual ideal.
You literally need the concrete to reach the abstract.
That's exactly the intended meaning. It's not condescending at all. It's developmental psychology applied to spirituality.
However, the material issues a massive, flashing red warning sign about this kindergarten stage.
Yes, it does.
While it is absolutely necessary, it carries the extreme, terrifying danger of fanaticism.
When people are in this lower preparatory stage, they rely so heavily on the physical blocks that they often develop an obsessive, exclusive attachment to their specific symbol or their specific ritual.
And because their minds are still weak and undeveloped in a broader spiritual sense, they only know how to express love for their own ideal by violently hating and denouncing every other ideal.
This part of the reading hit me so hard because it perfectly explains the modern world.
It uses this striking metaphor of a dog guarding its master's property.
Think about a loyal guard dog. It has a deep instinct to protect what belongs to its master, so it sits at the gate and it barks at everyone who comes near.
It doesn't matter if it's a malicious intruder, the mailman, or the master's best friend. The dog just barks.
But the material points out that the dog's instinct is actually almost better than human fanaticism. Because a human fanatic will sometimes bark at their own master if the master simply shows up wearing different clothes.
A fanatic becomes so obsessively focused on the external garments of their belief. The specific words, the specific clothing, the specific daily rituals.
That if the very truth they claim to worship appears in a different form or speaks a different language, they will viciously attack it.
It is the ultimate tragedy of sectarianism, summarized in a single metaphor. The fanatic completely loses all power of critical judgment.
They don't care what is actually being said. They don't care if the underlying message is one of profound truth or love.
They only care who is saying it and whether that person is wearing the right uniform that aligns with their specific sect.
The material highlights a terrifying psychological reality. The exact same person who is incredibly kind, loving, generous, and honest to people within their own religious or political brotherhood
Can turn into a howling, unreasoning fanatic and commit the absolute vilest deeds against anyone who falls outside that pale.
That is the inherent danger of getting stuck in the kindergarten stage.
Okay, so this brings up a massive problem. How do we actually fix this?
Because if the solution to fanaticism is just to care less, to say, oh, whatever, all paths are fine, I'm just not going to care that much about anything, that completely defeats the whole purpose of devotion.
You don't want a watered-down, wishy-washy, apathetic kind of love. You want intense passion.
So how do you maintain a burning, intense devotion to your specific path without becoming that barking dog at the gate?
This is where the philosophy introduces a crucial balancing mechanism. There's a concept here called Nishtha, which translates to steadfast devotion to your chosen ideal.
The framework recognizes exactly what you just said. To grow a deep, powerful, transformative love, you absolutely need focus.
You can't dig a well by digging 1 foot deep in 100 different places. You have to pick a spot and dig deep.
You must fiercely love your own path, your own chosen ideal, whether that's a specific deity, a specific philosophy, or a specific moral code.
But, and this is the absolute crucial pivot that prevents fanaticism, you must do so without criticizing, hating, or tearing down the paths of others.
You must develop the intellectual and spiritual maturity to recognize that all the various sects, religions, and honest human endeavors are just different manifestations of the glory of the same ultimate reality.
Steadfast devotion is the delicate, highly advanced art of combining intense, laser-focused personal love with a broad, worldwide sympathy.
Wait, I really want to challenge this, because conceptually that sounds beautiful, but practically, how does that actually work without feeling like a hypocrite?
How do you mean?
If I fiercely believe that my way is the absolute best way, let's step outside religion for a second. Let's say I'm a passionate vegan.
Okay, a secular example.
I am fiercely devoted to the ideal of not harming animals. I believe it is the highest moral good. How do I maintain that intense, burning devotion to my path without looking at someone eating a steak and thinking, you are wrong and my way is better?
How do you separate the love for your ideal from the judgment of someone else's.
Exactly.
That is the exact friction point of human evolution. And the answer this philosophy provides is that your love must eventually outgrow your ego.
Outgrow the ego.
When you are in the kindergarten stage, your devotion is tied to your ego. I am right, therefore you must be wrong.
Right.
But true, steadfast devotion realizes that your path is uniquely suited to your nature, your background, and your specific psychological makeup.
So the vegan, in your example, can maintain absolute, unwavering devotion to their compassionate lifestyle,
While simultaneously recognizing that another human being is on a completely different developmental trajectory, facing different cultural, physical, or psychological realities.
You don't have to agree with the steak eater's choices, but you stop deriving your own sense of righteousness from tearing them down.
You understand that your chosen ideal is the perfect medicine for your specific soul, but you don't try to force your prescription down the throat of everyone you meet.
You focus all your energy on deepening your own practice, rather than policing the practice of others.
Wow, that reframing is incredibly powerful. Focus on deepening your own practice rather than policing others.
If everyone applied that to their social media behavior today, the internet would be a fundamentally different place.
It would be unrecognizable.
Now, if you can actually maintain that balance, if you can keep your steadfast devotion without falling into the trap of fanaticism, the material says you eventually graduate from the kindergarten.
You move toward what is called supreme devotion.
But the bridge between the preparatory stage and the supreme stage requires a concept that I think absolutely terrifies most people, and that is renunciation.
Yes, renunciation. The moment a modern audience hears that word, defenses go up.
It evokes images of giving away all your money, moving to a freezing cave in the mountains wearing rags.
Essentially torturing yourself by denying every single worldly pleasure.
But the framework here completely and utterly redefines renunciation in the context of devotion. It is not about violently tearing yourself away from the things you enjoy in the world.
Exactly, and I was so relieved to read this.
The material explicitly says there is no violence here, no harshness, no bitter struggle, no grinding repression of your desires.
The practitioner of this path does not walk around gritting their teeth saying, I must give this up, I must suffer.
Instead, the directive is incredibly positive. It simply says, love the highest.
The physics of how this works are honestly beautiful. The renunciation that happens here is just a natural, effortless outcome of finding something vastly superior.
As you cultivate an intense love for a higher ideal, the lower desires just naturally fall away on their own.
The psychology here is brilliant because it bypasses the ego's resistance. Think about how we usually try to change ourselves. We use brute force willpower.
We say, I am going to stop eating junk food. I am going to stop gossiping.
And what happens? The mind obsesses over the very thing we are trying to repress.
But this philosophy says don't fight the darkness, just turn on the light.
Yes. And the material gives two incredibly vivid metaphors to explain this physics of let go that I think make it so perfectly clear.
The first one is about the sky.
It says that at night, the moon and the stars are the brightest things you can see. They dominate the sky.
But when the morning comes and the sun rises, what happens? You don't have to run around with a giant ladder trying to blow out the stars one by one.
You don't have to violently attack the moon.
The mere introduction of a massively superior, overwhelmingly powerful light naturally takes care of the lesser lights. The stars just fade into the brilliance of the sun.
And the second metaphor is equally profound, perhaps even more so for understanding how our attachments work.
It describes a wooden ship navigating the ocean.
All of a sudden, it sails too close to a massively powerful magnetic rock. What happens to the ship?
The massive iron bolts and bars that were holding the ship together are violently drawn out by the unseen power of the magnet.
Once the bolts are gone, the wooden planks are entirely loosened and they just float freely on the water. The ship, as a bound, restricted entity, ceases to exist.
Divine grace, or the pursuit of supreme love, acts exactly like that magnetic rock.
It effortlessly, almost invisibly, pulls out the binding iron bolts of our worldly, ego-driven attachments.
And once those bolts are removed, the soul becomes free.
So how do we apply the magnetic rock to our actual everyday lives? Think about habit building or trying to break a really destructive cycle.
Let's say you're struggling with a toxic coping mechanism. Maybe it's doom scrolling on your phone until 2 a.m. every night, just drowning in negative news because you're stressed.
The traditional brute force advice is put your phone in a safe, use an app blocker, force yourself to stare at the ceiling.
It's exhausting, and it usually fails because you're using willpower to violently suppress a deep emotional desire for distraction.
But this framework says Don't focus all your energy on destroying the bad habit. Find your magnetic rock.
Focus entirely on cultivating a higher, more beautiful passion.
Maybe you discover a subject you are intensely fascinated by, or a creative project that completely captivates your imagination.
If you find a love or a goal that truly sets you on fire, when 2 a.m. rolls around, your first thought isn't about doom scrolling. Your first thought is, I want to work on my project. I want to read this amazing book.
The lesser distraction just loses its grip on you. The iron bolts fly out and the planks loosen. It is a smooth, gentle, and completely natural evolution of your desires.
That is a perfect modern application. The practitioner doesn't try to kill their emotions. They simply point them in a different direction.
And the material makes a stunning observation here. All human emotions, even the most destructive ones, are ultimately just misdirected love.
The thief who breaks into a house loves gold.
Right.
The love is real. The intensity of the emotional energy is very real, but the direction is disastrous.
The goal here is to take all that intense emotional horsepower, that sheer capacity to care deeply about something, and point it straight at the highest possible ideal.
And when you successfully do that, when the lesser lights fade into the sun, you enter the realm of supreme devotion.
And to explain what this supreme devotion actually looks like in practice, the philosophy introduces what it calls the triangle of love.
I found this to be one of the most compelling, challenging parts of the entire deep dive.
True. Infinite love is built on 3 distinct angles. If a relationship, whether with a person or with the divine, is missing any of these 3 angles, it is not the highest love. It's something lesser.
Let's break these down, because they are tough. Angle number 1. Love knows no bargaining.
This first angle strikes right at the heart of how most of the world operates. True love never asks for anything in return.
The material offers a really sharp, uncompromising critique here of what it calls the beggar's religion, or the shopkeeper's religion.
If you look at the vast majority of human religious practice, people are essentially approaching God like a cosmic vending machine.
They pray to pass an exam, they pray for a promotion, they pray to recover from an illness.
Or on a larger scale, they pray for salvation just to avoid going to hell.
The text argues, quite radically, that this is not love at all. This is commerce. It is bartering.
You are saying, I will give you my worship, my time, and my praise, and in return, you need to give me a comfortable, safe life.
It is so transactional, and the material is absolutely ruthless about this. It says, begging is fundamentally not the language of love.
Think about it. If you hike to the top of a mountain and you are suddenly confronted by the most breathtaking, majestic sunset you have ever seen, you are overwhelmed by its beauty.
You don't look at the sunset and say, I appreciate you. Now please wire $100 into my bank account.
You just love it for exactly what it is.
Yep.
In true supreme devotion, you never ask for a reward. You are entirely, 100% in the position of the giver.
But I want to bring this back to the secular listener again. Think about how this shopkeeper's mindset infects our modern secular lives. Think about how we network.
Oh, that's a great point.
We go to a corporate event, we meet someone new, and instantly, subconsciously, our brain is calculating. What can this person do for my career? Can they introduce me to an investor? Can they get me a job?
That is the beggar's mindset applied to human connection.
We are transacting, not connecting. True love, in any form, knows no bargaining.
Exactly. When you remove the transaction, you remove the anxiety of whether you're getting a good deal, which leads perfectly into the second angle of the triangle. Love knows no fear.
The philosophy explicitly states that fear and love are fundamentally chemically incompatible.
As long as you are worshiping an ideal or treating a person a certain way out of a fear of punishment, whether that's fear of hell, fear of bad karma, or fear of a partner leaving you, you cannot truly love them.
You might have obedience, you might have deep submission, you might have compliance, but you do not have love.
To illustrate this, there is an amazing, deeply grounded example that really clarified it for me.
Imagine a frail, physically weak mother walking down a suburban street. A dog suddenly runs out from a yard and barks aggressively at her.
She is terrified. Her instinct for self-preservation kicks in, and she runs away to hide in the nearest open store. She's completely driven by fear.
But the very next day, she is walking down that exact same street, but this time she has her little baby in her arms. Suddenly, a lion springs out from an alley and lunges at the child.
What does that frail, terrified mother do? She doesn't run. She throws herself directly into the mouth of the lion to save her baby.
Her intense love for her child completely annihilated her biological instinct for self-preservation. In that moment, her love conquered her fear entirely. That is the second angle.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of our lives, it shows just how radically transforming true love really is.
When you achieve that level of fearless devotion for an ideal or for the universal whole, all the petty anxieties of daily life just evaporate.
You aren't afraid of what will happen to your physical body or your bank account or your social reputation because your love has completely eclipsed your fear.
The bolts have been pulled from the ship. And that brings us to the ultimate peak, the third angle of the triangle, love for love's sake.
Love for love's sake. You love simply because you cannot help it.
It has become your very nature to love, just as it is the nature of water to flow downwards. The material compares this to the moth flying into the fire.
The moth doesn't fly into the flame because it wants a reward from the fire. It isn't bargaining.
And it certainly doesn't fly into the fire because it's afraid of the dark. It flies into the blinding light because its fundamental nature is to love the light, even if that love results in its own absolute destruction.
It is described as the highest enjoyment, the absolute purest expression of the human soul.
When you hit all three angles of this triangle, when you stop bargaining with the universe, when you eradicate fear from your actions, and when you love simply for the sake of loving, the human soul is completely, utterly freed.
You are no longer acting out of compulsion or anxiety or a desire to look good to others. You have realized that the highest utility in life isn't accumulating creature comforts or padding your resume, but rather experiencing this supreme, boundless expansion of the heart.
Okay, this is all incredibly profound, but it's also very abstract. And thankfully, Vivekananda doesn't leave us floating up in the philosophical clouds.
He knows we are human beings living in human bodies with human nervous systems.
And because of that, we can really only express this infinite, formless love through human relationships. So the framework maps out what it calls the 5 human representations of divine love.
These are the 5 distinct stages of how human beings can practically relate to the ultimate ideal, and they progress in a very specific order of intimacy.
I want us to take serious time here because this is where the psychology gets really applicable.
Absolutely. The first stage is called Shanta, which translates to the peaceful, calm, static love. Think of it as the foundational layer.
It is a love of a person who has recognized the reality of the divine or the vastness of the universe and feels a deep, quiet reverence.
The fires of lower desires have been put out, but it hasn't yet erupted into an active, passionate, outward engagement.
It's the profound peace of sitting silently in an empty cathedral or looking up at the stars on a clear night. It is beautiful, but it is static.
Then we move to the second stage, which involves action. This is called dasya. This is the relationship of a servant to a master.
Now again, to a modern ear, servant and master sounds negative.
But think about it in terms of faithful, dedicated attachment. You see the ultimate ideal as the great master, and your greatest joy is just to serve that ideal.
It's like a highly devoted employee who genuinely respects their mentor or boss and just wants the company or the mission to succeed.
There is still a clear distance there. There's a hierarchy, a sense of awe, but the attachment is very real and very active. You are doing the work.
From there, the hierarchy begins to dissolve, and the intimacy deepens into the third stage, Sakya, or friendship.
Here, the distance closes completely. You view the divine, or the universe, not as a distant ruler or an intimidating boss, but as an equal, a trusted friend, a playmate.
When you are with a true friend, there is no fear. You can open your heart completely, you can be vulnerable, knowing that a true friend won't punish you for your faults.
And the philosophy says something incredible here about how we view our entire existence. It suggests that when you reach this stage of viewing the divine as a friend and a playmate, you realize that this entire sprawling, chaotic universe is just God's playground.
We are all here just having fun, playing a grand cosmic game. Think about that for a second. All the intense, agonizing stress we feel about our jobs, our finances, our social status, our failures. The material says misery only comes when we take the play too seriously.
It is a radical cognitive reframe.
But wait, I have to jump in here. If I view all of life, including the really bad stuff, as just a game, isn't that incredibly nihilistic?
Doesn't that just mean nothing matters and I shouldn't care about anything?
Exactly. If my business fails or someone I love gets hurt, how can I possibly call that a game?
That is the paradox of this stage. It isn't nihilism, because nihilism says there is no meaning. This philosophy says there is profound meaning, but the meaning is love, not the material outcome.
Think about children playing a highly competitive game of soccer. To the children, while they are playing, the game is intensely real. They cry if they lose, they celebrate if they win.
But the parent, watching from the sidelines, knows it's just a game designed to help them grow and exercise. The stage of friendship is about adopting the perspective of the parent while still playing the game.
You still participate, you still try to build the business, you still care for your loved ones, but you detach your fundamental inner peace from the outcome.
If you remember it's a game, and the universe is your eternal playmate, even the dangers, the heartbreaks and the sorrows become part of the grand sport of soul-making. It completely flips the script on how we process adversity. It removes the sting of permanent failure.
That distinction between nihilism and detachment is huge. You play hard, but you don't tie your soul to the scoreboard. Okay, so that's the third stage. Now the intimacy continues to deepen even further in the fourth stage, Vatsalya, which is viewing God as a child.
In the Indian tradition, this is very often represented by loving the baby form of Krishna. Now, psychologically, this is fascinating. Why would you take the Almighty, the creator of the universe, and view it as a helpless baby?
Because it is the ultimate hack to entirely eliminate all fear and all awe from your devotion. Think about the psychology of how a healthy parent loves a newborn baby.
The parent never, ever expects the baby to do anything for them. The parent doesn't say, I fed you, now give me money.
The parent only wants to give, to protect, to shower the child with endless love, without demanding a single thing in return.
By viewing the divine as a child, you perfectly encapsulate the no bargaining and no fear angles of the love triangle we discussed earlier.
You strip away the image of God as a terrifying magistrate who is keeping a ledger of your sins, and you replace it with an entity that simply draws pure, unselfish care out of you.
It totally reverses the power dynamic of worship. You aren't begging for help, you are offering care. And then we finally reach the fifth and highest stage, Mathura, the relationship of the lover to the beloved.
The text describes this as the absolute highest, sweetest, most overwhelmingly intense form of human love mapped onto the divine. All the boundaries vanish.
There is no master, no playmate, no child. It's that all-consuming, burning passion where the lover and the beloved completely merge into one.
And this is exactly where the material warns us that human language completely fails. We have to use the terminology of intense human romance to describe it because it's the most powerful consuming emotion we possess as a species.
But the practitioner's love at this stage is totally purified of all physical, selfish, or transactional limitations. It is an absolute maddening surrender of the ego.
And let's tie this back to the hook from the beginning of our deep dive today. When a person reaches this final stage of Mathura, this intense, all-consuming love for the ultimate ideal, the rest of the normal world looks at them and thinks, this person has completely lost their mind.
They are crazy. They don't care about their 401k. They don't care about climbing the corporate ladder. They just care about this invisible love.
And the philosophy actually embraces this accusation. It says, yes, the lover of God is indeed mad. But the practitioner turns to the world and replies, look around you. This whole world is a giant lunatic asylum.
You are mad for money. You are mad for fame. You are mad for the clothes you wear and the cars you drive. I am mad for the infinite. We are all completely mad. My madness is just a better, more eternal kind of madness.
It's an incredibly profound social critique disguised as a spiritual observation. It forces every single listener to pause and look at their own daily obsessions.
We dedicate our entire lives, our physical health, our precious mental peace, to chasing abstract numbers on a screen, or seeking the fleeting approval of strangers on the internet. From the enlightened perspective, that is true insanity.
The spiritually devoted person has simply looked at the menu of madness available to humans and chosen an eternal object for their obsession rather than a temporary, fragile one.
Which brings us to the ultimate grand conclusion of this entire framework in Part 7. We are talking about universal love and the actual physics of how emotion works on a macro scale.
To explain this, the material uses two specific Sanskrit terms, Samashti and Vyashti. Now, stick with us here because we're only going to define these once. Samashti represents the universal whole, the entirety of everything.
Vyashti represents the individual parts, the particulars.
This is the logical, mathematical culmination of the entire philosophy. The framework points out a very practical, logistical problem with how we try to love the world.
You cannot successfully love the whole world by trying to love one individual person or thing after another. There's simply too many people, too many parts.
It would take an eternity to go to every single human being and generate love for them. Furthermore, Human love, if directed solely at the finite individual parts, eventually brings pain and exhaustion because finite things change, they betray us, they disappoint us, and they eventually die.
So what is the ultimate hack? If I want to be a loving person, but I get exhausted and annoyed by the people cutting me off in traffic, how do I achieve universal love without burning out?
By loving the Samashti, by loving the entire universal whole, God, or the absolute, is the generalized, abstract, universal whole.
The physical universe we see around us is just that whole differentiated into millions of little parts. The logic is simple. If you genuinely love the whole, you inherently and effortlessly love every single part of it because the parts are made of the whole.
When you realize that everything is a manifestation of the ultimate beloved, everything becomes sacred. You love the saint, yes, because they reflect the light clearly.
But you also love the criminal, the difficult coworker, the person who cuts you off in traffic, because they are also just manifestations of the exact same divine reality, perhaps just wearing a dirtier mask.
Even the tiger that threatens you in the jungle is recognized as a manifestation of the beloved.
Okay, I have to stop you there again, because this leads to a concept called apratikulia, which translates to perfect resignation. The material says the true practitioner of this path welcomes pain.
They literally say, welcome misery, you are also from the beloved, welcome serpent, welcome death.
They face everything with a smile because
Right.
they no longer distinguish between pleasure and pain. But come on, welcoming a serpent or welcoming death with a smile, that sounds dangerously close to just giving up.
Like, if you're standing in front of a speeding bus, you don't just smile and say, welcome bus. How is this not an endorsement of total passivity or, frankly, toxic positivity where we just pretend bad things aren't bad?
That is the absolute perfect question, and it's where people often misinterpret Eastern philosophy. Perfect resignation does not mean passivity. It doesn't mean you don't step out of the way of the bus.
It means you stop emotionally resisting the reality of the present moment. Most of our suffering doesn't come from the pain itself. It comes from our massive psychological resistance to the pain.
We scream, why is this happening to me? This shouldn't be happening. That resistance burns massive amounts of emotional energy.
The practitioner steps out of the way of the bus, but they don't spend the next 10 years bitterly cursing the universe for allowing buses to exist. They recognize that the bus, the danger, the pain, the joy, the sunset, it's all part of the samashti, the whole.
They welcome the reality of what is happening rather than violently fighting against the fact that it occurred.
Oh man, this raises such a massive, important question for you, the listener. Think about your day today. How much of the friction, the stress, and the sheer exhaustion in your daily life comes simply from resisting what is?
We spend so much energy fighting our circumstances, fighting our chronic pain, complaining about our bad luck, agonizing over an email that was already sent.
If we adopted even a tiny fraction of this perfect resignation, if we viewed every challenge, every flat tire, every difficult boss as a direct interaction with the universal whole, as part of the play of the beloved, how drastically would our daily stress levels drop?
It would completely change the texture of your existence. The philosophy insists that all human emotions are ultimately the exact same energy. The energy is always fundamentally love.
When the thief steals, they are motivated by a love for gold or security. When a person acts out in anger, it's often out of a twisted, misdirected love for their own ego or a twisted ideal of justice.
The motive power in the engine is the exact same love that makes a mother sacrifice herself for her child. The light is the exact same light. It is just the direction the lens it is shining through that is flawed.
So your job in this life isn't to kill your passions. Your job isn't to become a cold, emotionless robot. Your job is to take that immense, beautiful power of human love and aim it at the infinite.
Exactly. When you finally point that love at the infinite, you stop bargaining like a shopkeeper. You stop fearing the lion, and you simply love for the sake of loving, like the moth to the flame.
You realize that you are not just this fragile physical body. You are not your job title. You are not the balance in your bank account. You are a profound, eternal spirit, and your ultimate destiny is to merge with that infinite ocean of love.
Okay, we have covered some truly massive paradigm-shifting ground today. Let's briefly recap this journey so we can cement it. We started with the frog in the well, diagnosing how our narrow, ego-driven perspectives create bigotry and limit our personal growth.
We looked at the necessity of the kindergarten of religion, using physical tools to grasp the abstract, but we warned against becoming the barking dog of fanaticism, offering steadfast devotion to your own path as the cure.
We learned about the physics of let go, how finding a higher, magnetic love naturally draws the bolts out of our lower desires without violent repression.
We mapped the triangle of fearless, non-transactional love and walked through the 5 human representations of intimacy with the universe, ending up in the ultimate realization that the whole universe is just a playground and we are all suffering from some kind of madness. The only real question left is what you choose to be mad for.
It is a complete, masterfully constructed architectural blueprint for human emotion. Now, if this deep dive sparked something in you today, if it made you look at your own little well a little differently, or if it gave you a new tool to handle your daily stress, please remember to subscribe to the Simplified Summary channel and share this with someone who really needs to hear it. It helps us keep unpacking these massive philosophical blueprints for you.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day, something to really explore on your own. The material notes that all rivers, no matter how winding or blocked they get, eventually flow to the ocean.
That single drop of water on the top of the mountain might get diverted. It might get temporarily stuck in a muddy puddle, but eventually, inevitably, through gravity and time, it finds the sea.
Think about that in terms of your own life and your own emotions. Every ounce of passion, every burst of sudden anger, every overwhelming desire you felt today was actually your soul frantically searching for the infinite ocean.
It was just getting stuck in the little puddles of temporary things.
So the next time you feel an overwhelming desire for something you can't have, or crushing disappointment when something finite breaks, ask yourself, what am I actually trying to love right now? Am I trying to love the temporary fragile reflection in the puddle, or am I searching for the infinite light shining behind it?